Riptide Blue. Riptide Blue Escalade. Riptide Blue.
Welcome to Movies Garage, the dumbest automotive channel in all of YouTube, and I am standing next to an underappreciated piece of cultural history. This is a 2005 Cadillac Escalade, and I can't think of any other vehicle in any other period of time that had broader base appeal. Pretty much every segment of America wanted a Cadillac Escalade, from my grandfather to rappers flexing on MTV Cribs to just about everybody in between wanted a Cadillac Escalade. Not to mention the #1 stolen vehicle in America for several years, this Escalade right here, so criminals love them as well. But nowadays they're just used cars that are getting used up and slowly disappearing from American roadways. There are very few nice examples like this left, and I feel like they are very underappreciated vehicles that will one day be extremely collectible. And I happen to find the holy grail of this generation of Cadillac Escalade. See the color? It's green. It's actually Riptide Blue.
Riptide Blue.
Just a little bit of background on the Escalade. Well, this one is probably the most identifiable and iconic as the Escalade, and probably the best-selling generation of them all. It wasn't the first. There was actually the first one, the Cadillac Escalade, under the previous body, the GMT 400, like the Chevy Suburban that I have, and it really wasn't much more than a rebadged special. Still, it introduced a luxury SUV to the market to match the Lincoln Navigator that had come out a few years prior, and it was extremely popular along with the Denali. When it came time to make this generation of Escalade on the GMT 800 chassis, they spent a lot more time making it, well, a lot more special. You had a mostly completely different body on this car, except the doors, well, there's some cladding and such, along with the standard 6-liter Vortec V8, one of the greatest engines of all time, until they actually went back and started offering with 5.3s and two-wheel drives later to make them cheaper. And the interiors were way better appointed than a stock Suburban. So with this generation, they had a massive hit on their hands. Everybody wanted one of these Escalades. I remember my grandfather buying one in cardinal red because he was a USC fan and he loved it. Of course, I'm watching MTV Cribs as well, and in just about every single driveway tour is an Escalade with 20s or 22s and big stereos. And it seems like Cadillac took notice of this customization culture, and towards the end of this GMT 800 run of the Escalade, they came out with their own blingy version, which is this, the Platinum. With the Platinum, you had a special grille treatment, chrome grills, the first Escalade to come with 20-inch wheels, and a lot of other touches on the inside to make the Platinum even more special. So this was the ultimate Escalade, and to make it even better, it is the best color they ever put on one of these, Riptide Blue, which is kind of a chameleon color that phases from blue to green, lots of metallic. It is absolutely gorgeous. With the Platinum Edition, though, came a pretty hefty price tag back in 2005. The sticker on this thing was $70,000. It was a lot of money for an Escalade, but the next generation was actually even more expensive. The base price on it was $60,000, and with options, it got to $70,000 pretty quickly. And then later, the Platinums, well, they got even more. Nowadays, an Escalade is a $100,000 proposition for something well-equipped, which is absolutely crazy. But back when I was working at a Chevrolet, Cadillac, BMW dealership, these were barely used, and the new Escalades from 2007 had just come out. And actually trading in one of these was a brutal proposition. I remember specifically one that was bought new for $70,000, coming in for trade, only 2 years old, and we offered $35,000. So they lost half the value immediately just driving this thing 2 years and barely putting any miles on it because it was the old body style. But in my opinion, this was way, way better than the Escalade that replaced it and the several Escalades to come, for many reasons which I shall show you now in a tour of this incredible Riptide Blue Escalade.
Riptide Blue Escalade.
Now, to me, even though Cadillac's known as a brand of luxury cars, I feel like the Escalade was most on brand for what Cadillac used to be when it comes to American luxury. Their sedans had kind of turned into chasing the European competition. They were trying to make sports sedans out of Cadillacs, which people didn't want. They'd buy BMWs for that. They wouldn't buy Cadillacs. So CTS, as neat as it was with the angles and all that stuff, didn't look or ride the same like it should. You could argue that the DeVille, the DTS, was certainly more on brand for Cadillac, but they had sort of ruined their reputation with the Northstar V8 engine that people were pretty turned off by the time that generation rolled around, as nice as those cars were. But this Escalade, very, very similar to, say, the old Fleetwood with the LT1 that people absolutely loved. A big, giant Cadillac that was rear-wheel drive based, or I guess full-time all-wheel drive in this case. And despite being called a sport utility, there is nothing sporty about this thing. Nowadays we make fun of cars for their big grills, but back in 2002 when this came out, this seemed like a really huge, obnoxious grill. Seems kind of subdued now at this point. Even the Platinum one that had extra special chrome, and this one even is a one-owner Escalade. And he must have been a repeat customer because they gave him the Cadillac Heritage of Ownership badge to put on his car. Those were like $100 back in the day. But this color is not really popping right now because we're inside in the sun. It's absolutely beautiful, especially on the Platinum. And of course, the 20-inch chrome wheels look very appropriate on the Escalade. 20-inch wheels were considered huge back in the day, mostly for the aftermarket, but nowadays a 20-inch wheel is considered small. This looks kind of small in today's marketplace, especially with all the rubber this thing has, which actually helps with the ride. You have fixed running boards. That Riptide blue paint is just so pretty.
That Riptide blue paint is just so pretty.
And around back is a massive, massive Cadillac badge in the trunk of this thing. No mistaking it for a Suburban, especially as the Platinum badge. Escalade ESV, which meant long wheelbase. And initially I wanted to buy a Project Escalade, one that popped up that was neglected like so many of them, well, nearly all of them are at this point, for $1,000, $2,000. But when I found this, basically the holy grail of second generation Escalades, I had to buy it. One owner car, only 97,000 miles, a Platinum ESV, and in Riptide blue. And the interior, well, it's just equally nice as the outside. Now, back when I was a salesman at the Cadillac store, it was very easy to sell these used off-lease Escalades because, well, they depreciated a lot, so you could get this for about $40,000, 3 years old, versus $70,000 for a comparably equipped new Escalade, and they had a lot of benefits over the new one. The number one thing, the seat comfort. There's a lot more cushion to the seat than, say, the newer Escalades that came after it, and, well, the current ones that have vibrators in the seat to tell you when you're about to hit something. Something you don't need or want. What you do want is a lot of cushion like this, and it is fantastic. The Platinum had a lot of other extra little touches, like this special stitching in the door panel, chrome wraparound on the Bose stereo, special wood, and extra perforation in the leather seats because they were heated and air conditioned in the front and the rear. Even cooler, the cup holders are heated and cooled to keep your drink hot and cold. This is in 2005. So pretty cutting edge stuff. The instrument cluster was also special to the Platinum, extra chrome, a different font, and you have the fancy name brand clock here in the center console. I think this was in all Escalades, but still looks really cool. The back seats, you have two captain's chairs and the third row bench, dual DVDs. There's a DVD player screen back there, which is standard on the Escalade Platinum. And as you can see, it's my new kid hauler. This is probably my new daily driver. And it will make a very reliable daily driver because under the hood is the mighty 6-liter Vortec. Oh yeah, there it is. Pretty much an unbreakable engine. Unfortunately, the engines that replaced it, the later 6 liters and the 6.2s, have cylinder deactivation. They have a lot of issues as they get older, gumming up oil passages and the engine's just failing. This is a very simple engine, but with all the modern fuel rail injection and all the modern conveniences that you would want. ABS, traction control, full-time all-wheel drive, but in an incredibly reliable package. The only thing that really goes wrong common on these things is, well, the fuel pumps. They'll go out just like on my old Suburban, and the replacements, well, they don't last all that long. But other than that, this generation of Escalade holds up so well, and it's why you see so many still on the road that are beat to hell, but still going. It is very rare to find a nice one like this, especially a Platinum in Riptide blue. And when you drive one of these things, if you haven't driven a nice one in a long time, you really feel what you're missing out on in modern luxury cars and SUVs. It is just so good. Let's take it for a drive. Before we drive off, I actually need to pull in the Lambos, but while we're outside, you can see this color in the sun. It is just so beautiful, this riptide blue. Phasing from blue to green like a chameleon color, and tons of metallic. It is just absolutely gorgeous. And one thing I forgot to do on the tour is show you the original owner's manual. Since this is a one owner, it still has everything in here, including the instructional CDs. May be worth a listen. Let's see here. Eat it. Hopefully that works. Oh yeah. That sounds pretty good.
Congratulations and welcome to your new Cadillac Escalade, the world's most powerful line of sport utility vehicles. Hi, I'm Claire.
Hi, Claire.
I'm Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Is to navigate
Good
the
beat.
system owner's manual located in your glove box, which provides complete operating instructions.
Well, I already know how all this works, so let's roll. Let's go for a cruise with my new friends Claire and Steve in this Escalade Platinum, and the seats are just so good. I'm coming from my current daily driver, my GMT 400 Suburban, that does have very comfortable seats and a very comfortable ride, even though it's not designed to be a comfortable luxury car. It's just the characteristics of the suspension, and the Escalade takes that, refines it even more, and just makes everything, well, more better, because these seats, so much cushion, but also luxury cushion that are ventilated. It's blowing cool air through my butt cheeks right now, and it's just so very nice. But the thing this Escalade has that my old Suburban doesn't is the air assist springs in the rear, which makes the ride even better. These things are going to have a great ride with this big high-sprung suspension that's just made for comfort, but also the tires having extra rubber on them. You don't realize how much shock absorption goes into tires, so when you put 20s or 22s on small wheel wells, you give up a lot of that ride comfort, but this Escalade definitely still has it. And this 6-liter Vortec, well, not as fast as a modern V8. It's plenty of power. I think it's a little over 300 horsepower, which is more than enough, and an engine that isn't stressed, that isn't designed to be more efficient with cylinder deactivation and a bunch of other gobbledygook that just breaks and it doesn't work. All the fuel economy savings that engineers are putting into these engines to get you those extra few miles per gallon, it just fails you in the long term when it comes to repairs. The more complicated they make these engines to make them more efficient, the worse they are, and consumers end up spending more money. But that's just kind of the future, I guess, until we switch entirely to electric vehicles. It's not uncommon to see one of these Escalades come up at a dealer wholesale auction with over 300,000 miles on it. It happens, well, all the time, at least back when I was a dealer, and they all ran and drove well. They were destroyed by children, they had rust issues if they were from farther in the north, and generally beat and neglected, but they still worked. It's rare to come across one that is still nice like this, and even though I set out to buy a project to be the first person to restore an Escalade because they deserve to be saved, every last one of them that you can, when this one popped up with the Platinum package, ESV Riptide Blue, I just had to have it. It's not the most exciting to buy something that's not a complete piece of junk, but man, I am not regretting it at all at the moment. I mean, this YouTube channel does cater primarily to my automotive masochistic tendencies to buy absolute hoopties, but man, I'm not regretting this purchase at all. It is so nice. Oh yes. I turned on the cooled cup holders just for giggles a little while ago to see if it still works. It's cold. It's very cold. That works quite well, actually. Now, I'm cruising 65 miles an hour down the highway right now, but you wouldn't know it because this thing just feels so smooth and whisper quiet when it comes to the wind noise, even though it's a giant brick, and the ride is just so nice that it doesn't feel like you're going fast. And I think that DNA is what made Cadillac back in the day, the ultimate luxury experience where you feel just like you're relaxing in your living room driving down the road, and the Escalade this generation certainly delivers that. I think this is why these sold so well, and really this is probably what saved Cadillac as a brand, because without the Escalade, they really had nothing. in the bankruptcy, they probably would have axed Cadillac before Pontiac or Saturn or something if it wasn't for the Escalade. After this generation, I feel like Escalades and a lot of other luxury SUVs that were supposed to be big and cushy like this went downhill to pander to automotive journalists that want to talk about how amazing drivers they are when reviewing an Escalade and saying, oh, this thing is greatly improved in the corners and the slalom course on the track, which why would you care about that in a Cadillac Escalade that can haul 7 people and 7,000, 8,000 pounds towing capacity? You want this soft, cushy luxury experience, not something that can take a turn. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's how luxury SUVs have evolved with their exotic magnetic suspension, active suspensions, and then of course the wheels, the 22-inch wheels with the little itty-bitty tires that sacrifice ride for handling. You lose a lot. You lose what this Escalade has, which is old school luxury. It's so good. You may laugh at me when I say this is going to be a huge collectible vehicle someday in the future. I don't know how far in the future. You laugh, but there's plenty of examples for context. The Jeep Grand Wagoneer is a great example of something that was very common that became quite scarce and shot up in value dramatically. And I feel like the Grand Wagoneer has a much narrower appeal than, say, an Escalade that everybody wanted in the mid-2000s. This was the ultimate aspirational vehicle, while the Wagoneer was certainly a weird niche luxury SUV that, well, you either love the wood, which I do, or you don't. I know there's a lot of people that don't look back on the first decade of the new millennium too fondly, say like the Radwood era of the 80s and 90s, where those cars are getting very collectible, but I do think the Escalade and a few others will have its day, especially as you see less and less of these on the roadways. They are disappearing fast. Oh, it's just so good, especially in the sun gandering at this Riptide Blue.
Riptide Blue.
Now, I don't think this will be $1 million car someday, but it will certainly be collectible for many, many reasons. The GMT 800 chassis as a truck in general is probably the best generation of General Motors trucks ever. And this Platinum edition of the Escalade was the most expensive, best equipped version of it. I'm just absolutely thrilled that I was able to find one in this color, still in really nice shape, and I imagine I'll be keeping it for quite a long time. But I said the same thing about the 94 Suburban. That was the baby hauler. Now this is, and same thing with the G55. But that's sold. So many others. But I really, really mean it this time. This thing's amazing. I swear I don't have a problem. Thank you. Thank you for watching.